And let's continue this conversation here with former Special Assistant to the President, President Biden, Michael LaRosa. Also with us, Republican strategist Cher Michael Singleton, the CNN political analyst, Laura Barone Lopez, and former federal prosecutor Joseph Moreno. Joseph, I want to start with you here. As the mayor just said, it really does read like a movie script. It's the kind of thing, the kind of plot, meeting a girlfriend, marrying her quickly after, and she just happens to have contacts who are close to the Egyptian government that then are seeking information from a sitting United States senator. How strong do you think this indictment is?
Gold bars, wads of cash, a Mercedes convertible, tawdry, absolutely. But tawdry does not always equal illegal. And the Supreme Court has made it pretty difficult to bring these bribery cases against elected officials. You need not just a quid pro quo. You need an official act, an exercise of governmental power. So a vote on something, approval of a policy. And when I go through basically those four kinds of conspiracies that Senator Menendez is accused of, I see holes in at least two of them.
But what about providing that information? According to the allegations, he sought information from the United States government that was non-public and provided it to these contacts who then passed it along to the government.
Right. Unclassified, but sensitive, absolutely. Right. But he's not facing espionage charges. I mean, maybe he should be, but they're not in there. So, I mean, again, looks really bad. The optics are horrible here. But as a defense counsel, I could definitely poke some holes in this.
Michael?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I noticed today was a very splashy presentation. Sometimes I think, I'm not a lawyer, but from a communications perspective, it seems as though when prosecutors make these kinds of large presentations before the media, sometimes it seems like their cases might be weaker than perhaps we think they are, and they're trying to argue their case in public opinion instead, and that's why they're doing such visual, presentations.
No, go ahead. Yeah, no, you go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say, I just don't think that the seat will be competitive from a political perspective, and whether he should resign or not, I think what's funny about my party is we quickly fall apart, whereas the other party tends to fall in line pretty quickly. We have no problem throwing each other under the bus and eating our young, but it seems like Republicans, they stick with each other.
Look, I mean, I hear what you guys are saying, but again, just a normal person reading this document, what it sounds like he's being accused of doing is taking money, almost $500,000 in cash, in exchange for providing information, actually even acting to facilitate the interests of a foreign government.
There's no doubt it looks terrible, but should he be held to a different standard when it comes to running for office than Santos or Donald Trump?
And that's exactly the question.
That's a fair critique, Abby, but I would say as someone who had a top secret clearance, having gone through that process, this has been a 1-year investigation. This guy is the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, one of the second most prestigious, one of the most powerful Senate committees that's over foreign relations for this entire country. And he's essentially acting as a foreign agent against the interest of the United States. Now, look, I agree, George Santos is a problem, and Republicans should have expelled him from the House. But I expect Democrats, including the president, to speak to this front, because if this were a Republican, I would argue that the expectation would be for Republicans to speak out against said individual.
I mean, how, if you are Senator Schumer, would you be able to say that George Santos, for example, should leave the House and not say that the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who's under this kind of investigation, should not be in that post?
Well, that's exactly why I think you're seeing, Abby, so many Democrats, in particular New Jersey Democrats, the governor of New Jersey, but also a number of Menendez's colleagues in the House that are saying he has to go, he has to resign, because, and even one of his former colleagues, Tom Malinowski, who used to serve in the State Department, said, how can we as a party be calling for Donald Trump, say that Donald Trump is not fit for office, but then not call for the resignation of Menendez? So it doesn't look as though it will be a sustainable position from Schumer to not speak out more aggressively on this matter.
I mean, he's also now bringing in the fact that he's the highest-ranking Latino in the Senate.
And his state is 22% Latino, and he has a huge base of support. This is like a Kennedy in Massachusetts.
Yes. But Abby, I would say that's like Clarence Thomas all of a sudden saying, but I'm the black guy on the Supreme Court. I'm not exactly sure how much room he has to maneuver by saying I'm the senior Latino in the United States Senate. Look, I think this puts Democrats in a very precarious political predicament. They've gone after Donald Trump under the idea that Donald Trump would somehow sell the secrets of the United States to any highest bidder. And here you have Bob Menendez, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, essentially selling secrets, if you will, to a foreign entity, acting at least in the interest of a foreign entity. I think Democrats have to address this, Abby.
I got to go back to you, Joseph, because help me understand this. Because what it sounds like you're saying is that, generally speaking, unless he took a vote for the Egyptian government, he can accept hundreds of thousands of dollars in gold bars, he can accept $500,000 in cash in exchange for facilitating their interests, informally, almost like a lobbyist would, from the halls of the United States Senate. Is that what you're saying?
Don't get me wrong. I'm horrified by this behavior.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking because I think that that's kind of what it sounds like you're saying.
If you're looking at it purely legalistic, right, it has to be an official act. And throughout that indictment, those 40 pages, you'll see that term peppered all throughout. It doesn't mean, though, that they can actually prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. So setting up meetings, making phone calls, right, establishing goodwill in terms of a relationship, those are not official acts.
Sharing staff details about a U.S. embassy in Egypt, that's not.
It's wrong, but that's not part of his job as being a senator. Making votes, making nominations, right? Maybe putting a hold on foreign aid. Now, that's a good one.
He's using his role as a senator to access that information. If he were just a regular Joe, he would not have access to that.
That's right. This is the loophole. This is the Bob McConnell from Virginia or Bob Menendez several years ago. That's why they couldn't get him the last time. And so I think he could drive through the same holes that prevented the DOJ from getting him the first time around.
But even, Abby, if that is the case, I mean, shouldn't we have a standard about ethics in this country? Whether it's a Republican or Democrat, I think the American people have the expectation that our elected officials serve our interests and not their own interests, let alone the interests of a foreign country. And that appears to be what Menendez is doing.
Do you think, Laura, that this is going to be an issue on the issue of Trump? The central issue with Trump for Democrats is law and order. Can they make that case with this sitting right in front of them with Bob Menendez?
I think given the speed of how many New Jersey Democrats, including the governor, have come out to say that he should resign, that as soon as lawmakers come back next week, and they'll be back by Tuesday, the Democrats are going to be peppered with questions in the Senate about this.
The president will too.
The president will as well, and I think that we are going to see more and more Democrats start to say that he should resign.
But we should be clear, a lot of the Democrats that came out today want his seat, because these seats don't come up very often in like Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey. The governor would probably love to run in a year for that seat and spend his own money, millions of dollars, running for Senate the way he did for governor. Several congressmen who've been in office for decades want that seat. So
I imagine they also want that seat because Menendez has been indicted twice in the last decade, and it seems like
but you know what? They spent $30 million against him last time after the last one, and he still won by 12 points. And now he's running in a presidential year.
This may help him.
Well, who knows? Stranger things have happened, guys. Interesting conversation. We'll continue to follow this story. Thank you, everyone. Coming up next for us tonight.